Okay, good morning, everyone, and let's get at it. So, I guess we'll just start off where we are and then go forward and backward. And looks like we kind of had an overnight round trip here. We opened a tad lower, went all the way to what would have been the top of the chop zone. See that there to 68, 67, 75, 80-ish. Came right back down to the pivot at the round number 6750, and now going the other way. Now, I haven't been following the news, if any, or whatever. Here's where we are, regardless of whatever the news flow may or may not have been, which is often secondary. And so I was reminded of last week, in case you don't have PTSD from it, that 67, 80-ish around here was a key level. And when we lost that, which is kind of the top of the chart, when we lost that, we kind of, went down through the round number of 6750. Then when that broke, we broke all the way down below 6700, and then had that violent retrace on Friday, which we've seen a few times. Key levels breaking, which are often CTA triggers, commodity trend advisors, which are hedge funds that are trend following, as the name implies. And there's certain standard triggers they use. Everybody's got a little different secret sauce, and Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs and different people have different estimates of where they are, but we know broadly the 20-day moving average is one of them, and the 50-day is another. And I'm not sure exactly where the 50-day is right now. We could pull that up in a minute, but it's 6,700-ish. Who was it? I think it was Bank of America had 6725 as a trigger. Goldman Sachs had a little lower trigger, like in their 66, 60-ish, 50-ish, kind of where we were now. I put it out in my weekend note. But whatever it is, we're kind of right there. We're kind of right there. Oh, here he is. Good morning, young man. And I'm back from my retreat over the weekend. Kind of wrote some content yesterday and tried to catch up, and threw it out on Twitter and on Substack and wherever a few discords I'm in, partially to help you guys and partially to just get myself reoriented after being away, changing from the ethereal to the mundane. Anyway, so here we are. Let's take a quick peek at options depth, which is here. Okay. Let me switch to this view first, to the kind of my standard view, so to speak. And while that's loading, let's just remind ourselves what the roadmap is ahead of us. Okay, so we have VIX options expiration on Wednesday, and we'll take a look at the VIX complex later on. And so Tuesday is the last trading day for VIX. Wednesday is when they expire. And so even today's Monday, and I'm sure we saw some last week, we can expect some jockeying in the VIX space, and we'll maybe take a look at that as well. Then on Friday, we had a VIX spike on Thursday, Friday to 22, which then receded below 20. And so we could think of VIX in broad zones. Like I said, I'll get back around to it. 20 to 22, 18 to 20, and below 18 going into expiration. Um, the VIX futures are kind of high into December. And so I kind of think that that's a little overdone, but we'll see. We'll see. And VVIX, the volatility of VIX, went up to like 110. So we're at all these inflection points in the indices and in VIX and everything else. And I really should be showing you a VIX chart, but I didn't. So, okay. Anyway, so here's where we are. 67.25, right here. Okay, as a reminder, like I always do, lines to the right where market makers are long gamma, and just without getting into all the quantity bullshit, what that means is as we head down toward a level for practical purposes, and we're just going to pretend this is here in isolation, that all this other stuff isn't here. As we head down, market makers buy to hedge. They go opposite the direction of the move. But then as we go up, the direction of the move is up, market makers sell. And so these levels in isolation tend to become sticky. Same thing approaching the level from below, which is where so if we approached it from below and we got up here 68.20, let's just say hypothetically, as we approach, market makers sell. But as we pull away, now they go opposite direction of the move. We're going down, they buy. And so these big levels become sticky zones. The market makers are short gamma. This is where customers are long. Customers, you, me, hedge funds, whoever, algos, whatever, they hedge in the direction of the move. So as we go up, you see this ladder up, they buy in this direction, which I'm going to guess is partially what contributed to the buying in the overnight session. The overnight session hedging is not as regular, so to speak, but it's still going to happen. And we kind of shot right up through this market making negative gamma level where we kind of stalled out. So now when we stall out on these positive gamma levels and pull away, we get sucked back up. The opposite happens on market maker negative gamma levels. We get pulled to them, but then as we stall out, we get pushed back down. They sell their long hedges, in this case, that were related to this move, and that kind of helps the move down. Okay, enough with the explanation. So where are we, Doc, and what's going to happen? All right, crystal ball time. So we're at 67, 25, 30. We're in here. Nothing to speak of until we get down to, good morning, Danny. Nothing to speak of until we get down to 6,700. So don't torture the data. From a gamma point of view, we got this little sticky 67, 25, 30, 35, even if we want to, this little zone. Below that, we have 6,700. 6,700 breaks, and we got this big market making negative, and we have a big down goes Fraser zone all the way down to 67, 65. with a little notch here around 80, 75, we'll call it, doesn't really matter, down, in between. We have like a little resting stopping point. Like we saw in some of the moves down last week, we kind of had these little stopping points along the way, kind of like usually round number reference points, where we might have stalled for 15 minutes or half an hour before we continued the eventual path down. Give me 1 second here. Okay, and so if below 6,700, we can get sucked into this zone near last week's lows. And this kind of action here, minus gamma, whether it's here or here, is prone to V reversal, choppy, whippy action. I don't know, somebody is, okay. A buddy of mine who does some individual stocks for us, for our premium subscribers. We do individual trades based on options, premium, volatility, open interest, etc. Just texted me some trade ideas. Okay, so that's kind of where we are. Let's take a quick peek back at a chart to see what happened while I was babbling. All right, so 67.20. So expected move bottom is down here. The expected move when I looked before was, 42-ish, 45. I don't remember exactly, near 67.50. So call it 45, 50 points. Now I'm sure the expected move, and we'll dig that up in a second, the expected move is going to be more because I'm sure volatility went up. So it's probably going to be a 50-ish expected or 40-ish expected move from here, which would put us down there. I don't know. I didn't check, but that's my guess. With that said, let me relinquish the mic. And also housekeeping. Tomorrow I'm flying out of Florida at 6 a.m. is my flight. So I'll be leaving the house at 4 o'clock or whatever, 4 a.m. I'm not going to be able to get anything written and posted. Maybe I'll get something up the night before. And I'm arriving back in the frozen tundra in the afternoon. And I'll get myself reoriented. So tomorrow, Tuesday, will be kind of a blackout day for me. Maybe in the airport, I'll scribble something, whatever. And by Wednesday, I should be back oriented and ready to go. Okay, with that said, go ahead. You're up.
Good morning, everybody. Okay, I'm going to take it slow here this morning. Want to cover a couple things. First off, I think the sell-off we're seeing currently, in my opinion, will lead into today's session. So I will be expecting downside from here. First target I'll see, I'm targeting is 67.25. After that, 6,700. And then if we get really aggressive, 66.70. And those are ES levels.
And here we are on the ES chart, and those levels are marked as gamma levels. When we convert the gamma levels to ES levels, subtracting roughly the 22-ish, whatever the difference is, those are the levels we get, and our subscribers get that and used in conjunction with what you ES scalpers usually use, which is whatever, I don't know, whatever you guys use. it ends up being a powerful confluence.
Definitely. And into open, I think we might see a little push up to 66 or 67.55. In my opinion, if we continue to hold below 67.65, so 10 points above, that push up will be kind of a bull trap, and we'll continue to see downside. Is kind of my read on it. I don't see upside in play unless we can hold above 67.80. And if we do hold above 67.80, I wouldn't try and go above 6,800. We do have NVIDIA earnings this week, so I think the market's just going to be positioning itself for that.
Yeah, and all those levels are roughly pretty close to what Gamma suggests. And I want to point something out about those top levels where we had market makers short Gamma, we can accelerate into them. But then once we stall, Chewy said, "Oh, we get up to there, but he wouldn't expect it much higher." Once we stall, then they start unloading their long hedges, and we get slammed back down. So the price action and the Gamma kind of support each other. Kind of exactly what we would expect looking at the Gamma. And I'm glad you mentioned the NVIDIA again, just to restate the obvious in case somebody's living in a cave. And I think they probably get the NVIDIA earnings information in the cave somehow. NVIDIA earnings on the 19th, the whole AI narrative, what this whole thing is built on, big weight in the index, et cetera, et cetera. So NVIDIA is coming out on Wednesday after the close. On Wednesday, we also have VIX options expiration. We have on Thursday, just in case that's not enough to keep to keep the market on its toes. On Thursday, we have some version of the unemployment numbers, NFP, whatever, from September, now that the government shutdown is unshut down, but October numbers are never going to happen. The data wasn't collected. They say whatever. I don't know. I'm not judging. I'm just saying. And so we're not going to see October. We're going to see September, whatever version of September is available. Again, I'm not judging. I'm just saying whatever version they're able to release. And then we have FOMC coming up, fast forward to the beginning of December, that's going to be making some decision based on whatever numbers are managed to be cobbled together. And so that's on Wednesday. On Thursday, along with the QYLD roll, which I'll talk about in more detail later in the week. What the QYLD roll is, the YLD family of funds sells at the money calls in the AM monthly expiration a month out. So they'll be selling December AM calls and NDX at the money. But then on the Thursday before that AM expiration, so the Thursday before the Friday, they buy back their short calls. So there's a delta buy coming in that tends to be supportive on Thursday that's going to be fighting with or accelerating whatever happens with the NFP on Thursday. And then let's fast forward to Friday, where we have options expiration, where we have the end of the NVIDIA hangover or continuation of the NVIDIA reaction, along with monthly SPX options expiration, along with the QYLD roll part 2, where they then sell at the money calls, not just in NDX, but in all the indices. So I think it's about $6 billion in their XYLD, which is the SPX fund, and in their RYLD, which is the RUT, the IWM. Plus, they have the same kind of crap with Nvidia and with Apple, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's Friday, and then Santa Claus is coming to town sometime after that, they say. So that's where we are. Other than that, there's not much going on. Yeah, and so that's kind of where we are. I'm expecting kind of choppy, crazy action. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see us tag. Yeah, I don't know, I'm just gonna pick a number out my ass. Excuse me, out of the blue. I wouldn't be surprised. Let's take a look at. I can get a little vulgar sometime. I'm a kid from the Lower East Side of Manhattan. I'm a kid from the Lower East Side of Manhattan. I grew up in the projects. Um, you know, tagging 6750 round number today as a possibility. Sure, why not? We might even just kind of fight our way all the way back up towards 65 or 75. Doubtful, but we could. And we might break 6,700, tag one of these levels down here. I don't think we will, but we could tag one of these levels back here. And we could round trip it, one of those 75, 85 point round trips and end up closing more or less flat, because the gamma structure, again, getting back to where we live, or where I live, the gamma structure is just this big whip. It's just this big whip. Let's just take a quick look over here. So depth view, this is options depth, by the way. So depth view just shows us the same thing as the bars do, but we get to see the numerical value, and sometimes it's easier to kind of think of the relative impact if you see the numbers. And so we see smallish numbers here, 159.88, 677. This looks like somebody bought a debit spread here, 500, 700, whatever it is, right here. Put that. So this kind of cancel out. So this whole area here is noise. Here's long 67.25's customer side, the puts, and market makers have already hedged in this direction. As we accelerate down, we could get a little bounce, but we have this 66.95 trying to pull us down. And we have all this stuff pulling us down, and at the same time, we stall, it decays and pushes us up. On top, we have a similar mess. If we can get over 67.50, which looked likely before, doesn't look as likely now, we kind of have this pathway up thinner towards 67.85. And we have a lot of action here at 6,800. And when I was looking before, it looked like 6,800s. And where were they? All the way, there was something down here. I don't see them anymore. It looked like somebody had convex bets at each level. Maybe it was this 67.70, somewhere down here. Looked like there were buyers at, maybe this is it right here, 66.95. I was looking yesterday over the weekend. At 6,800, looked like people are betting on the wings. And that's where we are. Let me see what I have here. Sherman, I missed what you were saying. So, next down, he has upside. He has Condor Day. Well, it's kind of always a Condor Day, but it's a kind of a wide and whippy Condor Day. So, as I typically do, I will leg into each side separately. And from the way it looks now, the put side first. Now, yeah, let's talk about this. So today, there isn't much going on, but tomorrow we have 66.60, last week's low. We have some market maker positive gamma down here at 6630, and we have this stuff down here at 6600. And so this, the hedging from this, especially later in the day, is going to kick in. And down here somewhere, it should be pretty good to sell premium. So I'd look to get that at the open. And I'm probably going to look for one DTE to sell somewhere down here. The further away, the better. Going to try and do something else for a second now. Hold on. Let's see how this computer works here. And for those of you in my Discord, I think I was playing with a little different formatting for the TV strings and labeling and whatever, and I might have screwed up on some of them. So there should be two different versions, one that came out on Substack and one that I was playing with. And I'm not sure if I copied and pasted the right one where. But the Substack has the standard version that I always have, and it's also on WHOP. And the one that I'm playing with, I'll get both versions in the Discord eventually. All right, so for some reason, Tasty Trade doesn't want to open. I wanted to look at the chain, but it doesn't seem to want to open. So I guess I'll go back here. And that's basically it. Any comments from the audience, so to speak? Let me just see what. Oh, there we go. Now it's trying to open. This computer is 2016, really end of 2015, and it was, obviously wasn't like the best one released then, although it was a trading computer, Falcon at the time. But somehow, I don't know, a decade on a computer and they don't last like they used to. And so while this thing is waiting to load, it'll load by options expiration. I'm not worried about that. Let me take a look at the levels that Sherman mentioned again. So, okay, sorry, so good. So we're kind of stalling where we're supposed to. I didn't check the EM. I'm going to go check that in a minute while I pull up this chart here. I'll kind of do my best multitask. So Sherman is talking about 6670 downside ES, 6670. That's kind of betwixt in between these levels here. So 6670 is a little bit below 6700 SPX. So it kind of makes sense. Yeah, that's somewhere in there. Right now we're just fighting with this area. And this, okay, hold on. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. That's because I'm trying to log into Tasty. Okay, some comments from the peanut gallery while we wait. And for those of you that are too young to remember, I believe it was the Howdy Doody show, which was one of the Saturday morning shows, like the lead-off show Saturday morning for kids at like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. They had the peanut gallery. I'm pretty sure that's where it was. It might have been the Mickey Mouse Club. I forget. They kind of blur. It's been, 3/4 of a century, or not 3/4. It's been almost 3/4 of a century. So, hitting the wrong things. Thank you, folks, for bearing with my less than slick presentations. What you're going to get with me is real. think I finally got what I'm trying to get. Initializing brokerage session. It's still not coming up. Alright, so let's just put this here for interest sake while this tries to load. Yeah, so here were the ES levels that we were talking about. Oh, let's see where NVIDIA is. Right? Don't we want to see where NVIDIA is? Does NVIDIA even matter? This whole thing is moving slow as shit. Okay, so NVIDIA is kind of trying to, not even 190. I have some NVIDIA calls for the 28th called debit spreads. I might add to them. Probably won't hold them through earnings, but I don't know. Seems to me NVIDIA down 8-10% from all-time highs. Some bargain hunters are going to come in, and there should be elevated call volatility, call skew, demand for upside calls. I'm thinking should go up. If it doesn't, if skew favors the puts, that'll be real interesting, because then if NVIDIA beats, then there'll be a whole market maker scramble sending this thing to all-time highs. So that'll be interesting. Yeah, I like to be out by London close. I tell you the truth. Sherman says waiting for a London close. And yeah, but I like to be out of at least the morning tranche by London close. And I have this thing that I put out that I call TIT, time and trade. And I like, if I can be in my iron condors for an hour, hour and a half, that's great. And then I go for a second tranche for a tweak for like that part two. So this thing is still not loading. Jesus Christ. Oh, it loaded. Yay. Okay. Let's see what we got here. I'm doing this so we can just kind of look at an option chain, right? Because most of us think in option chains. If I can get this thing to slide over. There we go. Yay, an option chain. I'm home. First, I like to look at E-mini and get a quick idea of the expected move based on the E-mini. This thing is just moving so slow. 43. That's what I was guessing, 45. Okay. So wherever we are now, let's call it 25-ish. 45 on the bottom takes us to 66.80. On SPX, or it takes us to 6,700 on E-mini. And 45 on the top takes us towards 6,800, 6,880-ish, numbers I heard you guys talking about. And 45 on the top takes us to 65-ish, whatever it is on SPX. And so that's kind of where we are. So we're down 11 from the close. We closed at 35 SPX. We had a tiny bounce after market. So that's where we are. So now let's look at SPX. Let's see what kind of trouble we can get into. I like to sell them wide, but let's even do a little narrower one. That's 70 cents. That's pretty good for that narrow, for that far away. Even that. If you wanted to screw around and try to, you can even go 6,700, 6,600 or lower for 40 cents, 50 cents down there. Such a deal. I mean, do we crack 6,600 and just fall apart today? It just doesn't seem to make sense.
That's what I was I kind of have in my playbook for today.
What's that?
A crackdown.
So what, like a 2% down day?
Not quite, but I mean, close. I mean, 2% is a big deal, but I'd say pretty close.
So 100 points, we'll call it?
Yeah. I always like to prepare for something big. That way I can hold my winners.
Okay. All right, great, thanks. You cancel this shit. No, I'm gonna leave it. But what is also interesting to me, if I look, which I am looking, out to tomorrow, right? I go way ass down here. I'm just gonna kind of just poke around. For 55 cents, that looks like stealing to me. So I'm just gonna put in one as a placeholder. Okay, butterflies. And whatever I put in now, that's FYI for those of you that haven't watched the show before. I leave in. If they fill, they fill. And then I put in a standard buyback. I don't do much management because the other account, quote unquote, is a big account. This is just sort of playing around. And then I close them out whenever I close them out. And I post them on Twitter and on Substack or Discord, whatever. Here's what I did. Here's what I got. Here's how I close them. And that's that. This is for educational purposes only. So, I like this right here. Should we go up 65 cents? I'll try to cheapskate it. Now let's look at the put side. So we want to get that convex move on the put side. There we go. So we know we have that acceleration potential. Something like that, 40 cents is really cheap and good. I'm not so convinced that we break 6,700. I mean, we could, but I think 60, okay, we're going for 65 cents on each side. Possible acceleration down toward here, 67.10. Possible acceleration up. And then I manage these intraday. What I like about these is they're very forgiving. You can sit in them for a while and be down 10, 15 cents, even for the big move against you because of the mid that you're selling times 2. And same thing here. And then you could always add inside of them or whatever. I turn them into Frankenstein flies a lot. 6,800. There's there juice up there at 6,800. NVIDIA stock split? I never heard about an NVIDIA stock split.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen.
No, I think you mean Netflix. I think we've got NVIDIA on the brain. The brain thought Netflix, but the fingers typed NVIDIA. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So let's see, 6,800. Is there juice all the way at 6,800 for today? Yeah, look at that. Holy moly. Well, in that case, you've got me interested right up here, 6,805. How could I not put one in? Thank you for that. Who was it? Perry. Wow, I didn't even bother looking up there. Yeah, well, IV is jacked, so we're going to get it on both sides, and with the positive, with the negative gamma, we could get runs up and runs down, and could look a little dicey. So I sometimes do. Let's just talk about this for fun. What I sometimes do, just to kind of like buffer this. A lot of it's more for the psychological part of staying in some of these trades. Well, let's just use this as an example. I'm selling 68.05. If I buy this for 10 cents right in here, right below, right near it, that'll just kind of change, the P&L picture won't look so nasty if it moves against you. For 35 cents, even something like this, and you could sell 2 or 3 of these, and you could always sell inside of it. I turn these into Frankensteins. For me, 35 cents is a cheapie to do that. So I'm going to do that for science. And then I'm going to get bold and do, oh, that's not, I don't think it's bold. And do another one over here, wider. So it's kind of like a broken wing fly-ish or an asymmetrical condor. And yeah, so something like that. Again, I don't think we get there, but you never know with NVIDIA or whatever coming up. And so that's it. I'm going to go. Any questions, comments, etc. before I move it on? And yeah, sure. Okay. All right. So that's it.
Good luck, everybody.
Any final words of wisdom?
I'd say take it slow until at least Wednesday.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea either. We don't have much visibility here, so a pre-Thanksgiving week to just kind of chill and size down a little bit, and wait for really juicy setups, whatever you trade, whether you're a premium seller or a scalper, so you don't get cut up, is probably reasonable advice. And we'll be coming up with some kind of Black Friday special, whatever, when I get home Tuesday, Wednesday. I'll have to kind of, Julie will help me with the admin back end, and we'll kind of figure out how to do that and launch it. And then when that ends, so that'll end, and then eventually there'll be a Christmas special, then a year-end special, and a President's Day special, and then an Easter special, etc. Anyway, okay, so I'm done. I'm out of here. Take care, everybody.
Bye, everybody.